There have been tense scenes at the UN overnight, where Israel has hit out at its key ally, the US, over its decision not to veto a Security Council resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. The resolution, which also demands the unconditional release of all hostages in the Palestinian enclave, passed, with the United States opting to abstain from the vote.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu labelled the move a clear retreat from the United States' previous position, saying it will hurt the war effort against Hamas. Big developments, so let's go straight to our Middle East correspondent Alison Horn, who's been following the story for us from Jerusalem. Alison, good morning. So how significant is this resolution?
Good morning, Michael. This is the first time supporters of a ceasefire in Gaza have managed to pass such a resolution at the UN Security Council. It has been proposed 3 times before, but as you mentioned, each time before it has been vetoed by the United States. Today, though, the United States abstained, which means that that resolution has passed with no opposition from any other council members. The resolution itself calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during the month of Ramadan, which we're about halfway through at the moment, and for that pause to be followed by a long-lasting and sustainable ceasefire. It also calls for the unconditional and immediate release of hostages being held inside Gaza. Now, UN Security Council resolutions are legally binding, but in practice they aren't always implemented. So Israel can elect not to implement this resolution, not to abide by this resolution. I think it's likely that's what we're going to see, although it is facing massive pressure to implement the resolution and to abide by these demands for a ceasefire. Hamas says that it welcomes the resolution. It says it's ready to return all of the hostages in exchange for Palestinian detainees being held in Israel. But Israel says that this vote has hurt the country's war efforts inside Gaza, and the country's foreign minister says that the war in Gaza will continue while hostages are still being held there.
A nation is being murdered. A nation is being dispossessed. A nation is being displaced for decades now, but never at this scale since the Nakba.
The resolution just voted upon makes it seem as if the war started by itself. Well, let me set the record straight. Israel did not start this war, nor did Israel want this war.
And Alison, it seems the decision by the US to abstain from that vote at the Security Council has caused even more friction between Israel and Washington.
Yeah, Israel's lashed out at the United States. It wanted the US to use its veto power to block this resolution. Israel was planning to send a high-level delegation to the United States this week for conversations about its planned invasion into the southern Gazan city of Rafah, which the US opposes. And the US was hoping to have conversations seeking some alternative to a Rafah invasion. But after this vote, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that delegation has now been cancelled. He's called the US vote, the vote of the Security Council, a clear retreat from their previous position. That's something the White House denies. They say that they're shocked and disappointed that that Israel will not be sending a delegation to discuss Rafah. But I think this shows a couple of things, Michael. One, it shows the United States is facing enormous pressure about its role in this war and its support for Israel as thousands of Gazans have been killed, civilians in Gaza. It also shows the deepening fractures between Israel and the US, two very close allies. Importantly as well, I think it shows the position of Benjamin Netanyahu here and his feeling that he needs to be seen to be standing up to America.